Ladies and gentlemen, before we start today's episode, I have a couple of announcements to make that may make you very happy as Uriah Heep fans. If you're not a Uriah Heep fan, what are you doing here? Of course, you're a Uriah Heep fan. Now, the first thing is that as of 1 o'clock Wednesday morning LA time, I did release 3 Uriah Heep related podcasts on my other show, the Haskincast podcast. The first one was my interview with artist manager Steve Weltman. Steve manages the careers of Ken Hensley, Lee Kerslake, and Paul Newton. And even though Ken and Lee are no longer with us, his work will go on for their estates forever. It's never over. There's always more stuff to do and more music to get out. He let me know about something super amazing, so you'll have to check out that interview. And then you can listen to the 2 other episodes that I released, which are my reviews of Lee Kerslake's album Eleventeen and Ken Hensley's album My Book of Answers. Both just stunning albums, very dear to my heart. And I'm very glad that they were able to complete those projects before they passed away. I've got the links in the show notes for those. And this is super freaking cool. My buddies at BMG have released, or are about to release, I should say, September 21st, I believe it is, a new Uriah Heep box set. And this is it's just going to knock your socks off, or, whatever you're wearing. It is 7 LPs that are picture discs, as well as 7 t-shirts, 7 days of lyrical inspirational phrases, and a wall calendar, so you can even schedule your Uriah Heep and maybe podcast schedules listening. Now, this is going to be pretty incredible. I've seen the pictures of it. They're posted up on the page. Just stunning. So if you go to the website, click on the Uriah Heep link from scotthaskin.com. You'll see it there right under the episode player, the sort of preliminary picture of it all. Really impressive. The albums look beautiful. I love a good picture disc. I really do. So 7 albums. What 7 albums are we talking about? Well, the first 7 albums that the band came out with, starting with Very Heavy, Very Humble, moving on to Salisbury, Look at Yourself, Demons and Wizards, The Magician's Birthday, Sweet Freedom, and Wonder World. Every album just amazing, just stunning artwork, beautiful stuff. So September 21st, there is a pre-order link on the website. And again, if you go to scotthaskin.com and click on that Uriah Heep podcast link, scroll down just below the player, you will see the pre-order link. I'll also put it in the show notes. You know why? Because I care. But it's amazing, guys. It's absolutely stunning. You're definitely going to want to get a copy of that. So order now. Be prepared for that release on September 21st. And now, back to the show. Welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I'll be covering every studio song the band has recorded and every bonus track that I can find. Each week we'll go over a new song from the beginning to where they are currently, and as they keep adding albums, I'll keep adding shows. Let the deep dive party begin.
In the magic garden, some were singing, some were dancing.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I am your host, Scott Haskin, and today we are going over the title track of this album, the song Fallen Angel. Really quickly before I do that, I just want to let you guys know that if everything worked out the way I planned it, last night should have been the release of my review of Ken Hensley's final album, My Book of Answers. I will put a link to that on the website, along with my review of Eleventeen, Lee Kerslake's final album. And those will be on the website. So if you go to the website, scotthaskin.com, click the Uriah Heep podcast link and scroll down just a little ways, there is a section where it will take you to a page where I have links to all the interviews I've done with different band members. And I will also add a section to that which has all the reviews I've done for offshoots of the family. So different albums I've reviewed, like Ken Hensley solo projects, things like that. So those reviews will be there as well. This was a tough album because it was a real emotional thing for me. And I really wish I had had the chance to get to know Ken better. I'm really glad that we had some conversations over the years. He was very kind to me, and I deeply appreciate that. And such an inspiration as a musician. So it was a tough tough review for me to do, but I'm glad I was able to do it. And again, if all worked out well, then I had my special guest on to talk about Ken and the project and a bunch of things. So there is that. Now, though, we are here to talk about the song Fallen Angel. Now, this is the final track on the proper album. So tomorrow we dig into a couple of bonus tracks that we haven't touched on already, and look forward to that because there's some good stuff on here. But right now, let's get right into the song. Here is Fallen Angel by Uriah Heep. Boy, Ken really does love that synthesizer sound, doesn't he? I mean, we've heard it quite a bit throughout different songs of the band. But, you know, it's also, if you're using a lot of the same sounds, it really makes it a lot easier on stage because you don't have to pull up all these different sounds, try and, you know, rewrite the order of the patches on your synthesizers so that they just come up in the right order. Or if you just decide to do a song spontaneously. So it's kind of nice to be using similar sounds. And it really does sound good on this. It gives it a real cool edge, I think. It makes me feel like, you know, it's autumn and the leaves are turning and there's just a crispness in the air. I know that's probably completely off in left field, but that's just what this song makes me feel, along with the acoustic guitars. Love that strumming on here. But here again, you know, another example of the continuity of this album, where we have the backing vocals really singing the title or a chorus of the song right off the bat, doing something to introduce it instead of just having the lead vocal come in as you normally would. So it's been fairly consistent on this album, and even somewhat through the lineup, that we've heard songs that are set up this way. But it sounds good. They sound a little bit different than they normally do. Not muted per se, but they sound a little bit like they're trying to be quieter. It feels very intentional. And I think it goes along with the gentle sound of the strum, because it's really not a harsh strum. You know, it's a very gentle strum on the acoustic. So I don't know, it's kind of weird. And I really like that pattern that Lee Kerslake is playing there while the vocals are going on. Song's off to a good start, but I really love that just autumn feel it has to it. I don't know if that was actually played on an electronic drum set or if that was something that Ken filled in on the keyboard, but that's really the first introduction that we've heard of electronics in the way of percussion on anything by Uriah Heep. And, you know, here we're on album 12. Now, I thought that was really nice. It was subtle. It wasn't anything that, was overbearing by any means. I thought that was just a nice little a little flavor that was added in there. Very cool. Love the vocals on this. I don't know about you guys, but I could see this in like a late 70s, early 80s movie. Maybe somebody's driving down the road and they're doing like a montage of this person he's remembering. I could totally see this fitting into a film. Obviously very radio friendly so far, but just a beautiful vocal. I really love the way that the vocal sits over the music. I love that the music is present, but not really. It has a good tempo, but it's not aggressive. It's really interesting the way it sits in the tempo as well. But I love the strumming on it. I think this is a fantastic song so far. I think the synth is a little bit loud in comparison, but it seems like I've said that on a lot of songs. Either the drums are slightly too loud, the bass is slightly too loud, or the keyboards are. It really comes down to the way that the engineer or the way that the producer told the engineer to mix it. But I mean, it's not a bad mix by any means. But when you've got such gentle playing and a gentle vocal, that synth seems just a little bit harsh at that volume level. But again, that's just me. I'm a picky audio engineer, so basically consider that the equivalent of like an old man rocking back and forth in a chair talking about how kids don't know what the world is all about today. And this song just has such a great mood to it. I really love it. This is easily going to be one of my favorites, I can tell. But I for some reason, I really want to go to the store. Now, I'm not much of a drinker, to be honest. When would I do it? I don't have time. But I would say I'm very tempted to go to the store and get a 6-pack of Angry Orchard crisp apple and just pretend that it's not 109 degrees outside right now. The song just has that feel for me. It really encapsulates just that crispness of autumn. But the vocal being as gentle as it is over those gentle acoustic guitars, this really works. I mean, it just hits on all levels for me. And I don't know what they're going to do next because I'm not familiar with this particular song, but I really love it. One thing I found particularly interesting in that last part was the way Lee Kerslake is pumping the bass drum there. And it sounds like it would be aggressive, something that would be kind of driving the song when you're just going boom, 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 boom on the bass drum like that. But for some reason, there's such a gentleness to it that while it moves the song forward, it doesn't make it aggressive. It's a really fine art to be able to do that. And he's really got it down here because the song doesn't feel rushed. It doesn't feel fast. It's not a hard driving song, but yet it's got a driving bass drum to it. So I really equate that to the gentleness of the volume in the EQ. Maybe they rolled off a little bit of the punch on it so that it was just, had a different feel of presence and it didn't have quite the attack, that the bass drum has on other songs on this album. So it was very masterfully done, but I think it really works beautifully for the song. Wow, there were a couple of really beautiful parts in there, and the transition into that even further level of gentleness was really nice. I love that extra keyboard in the background. Really just felt like it enhanced the song. There was no point where I felt, wow, that was really abrupt. And then the build up back into the chorus again was really nice. That did feel a little bit heavier. I feel like the bass drum is standing out a little more in the mix right now in this last section while everything else dropped down. It's like they didn't drop the bass drum down with everything. They left that where it was and dropped everything else a little bit and made that stand through. So now it does feel a little bit more aggressive, but still not, harsh or driving too hard. It really was just a nice transition. Well, you can really hear a wonderful reverb and I think a little bit of delay at the end of the word angel. It just sounds so massive and epic, even though, again, it's not anything that's being performed in an aggressive manner at all. It's very gentle, but it just sounds really wide and angelic to me. I love the sound of this. It's really different than the rest of the backing vocals. There's something that I can't quite put my finger on, but it's a little bit different in style and performance than they've done before. But I just love the way it sounds. It just has such a nice warmth feel in the middle of that, autumn crispness. Okay, so I'm going to go out on a limb and say those are electronic drums. I don't think Ken is covering those, although you could do that on a synthesizer. It would be a little bit of a hassle, but it could be done. I'm going to make a leap and say I believe those are Simmons electronic drums. I know they were some of the earliest that were out. But if you want to hear another example of them, listen to the song Steal Away from the Snake Bite album by Whitesnake. It was the last song on the first side, I think, of the LP, or song 4 if you have the cassette or CD, at least on the version I have. I think there was another version that was out of order from what I'm familiar with. But again, here we go, European versus American releases. The drums sound cool. I wouldn't want to hear a whole song with, played on those toms, because that would get kind of annoying. But just as an accent, I think they're very nice. These come into play, more and more heavily as we get into the 80s. There were a lot of bands that were just using synth drums, and all kinds of different kits and things were coming out. But I like the sound of them. I think it's really interesting because I've not heard them on a Uriah Heep song before. And I'm just kind of imagining that they were in the studio, they were recording, there was a set there, and Lee said, hey, let me try something. Or, somebody suggested, hey, why don't you, play around on those and see what you think. And it just kind of came together that way. It seems like so many of those little things, especially when it comes to like additional percussion, seem to happen just by, well, this happened to be in the studio, or my son was playing with this morning and I brought it with me into the room, and, stuff like that, which is really cool because it just adds that spontaneity to the music. And a lot of times the performances can be a bit different on those instruments because they aren't ones that you've played with the song a whole lot. You're just like, hey, let me try and lay down a track with this and see how it sounds. So it's very natural and first take feel to it. So anyway, pretty cool stuff. I do find it a little interesting how the vocals are slightly in the background. They're the most, predominant thing happening, but they're still slightly in the background, or maybe they seem more now that the drums have gotten a bit louder. But definitely interesting. I love return to that last part that we heard. I do feel that the chorus has been repeated a lot. They probably could have done a different arrangement and cut down on that a little bit. As much as I love the sound of it, it just feels like it's every time you do something and then you have to do the chorus, and then you do something else and you have to do the chorus again. So it feels a little bit repetitive for me, but I love the sound of it though. It's just amazing. And like I said, listen to the decay of the words "fallen angel" and see if you can hear that reverb and delay that I just love so much. Well, that was a pretty long fade. That was about 20 seconds or so. I love the riffing that John Lawton's doing there. It just feels very off the cuff, but it's kind of buried a little bit. So it's just the balance of it is not, it doesn't sound bad. It just is different. It's not what you would expect. You would expect that, John would be in the foreground, the vocals, the backing vocals would be right behind him, and then the music right behind that. And it's quite the opposite. The backing vocals are still more in the front. He's kind of way in the distance. And then you have the music. So it's definitely an unexpected balance. But I love this song. I love the mood of it, probably more than just about any song that we've talked about so far, which says a lot because we've talked about a lot of songs. I mean, we've reviewed over 100 already. And there is just something magical about the sound of this song for me, much like I felt with Illusion. There was just something about the sound of it that really grips me. And sometimes you really can't explain what it is. But for me, there's just something about the way that the vocals go with that synth, with the acoustic guitar strumming, the gentleness of it and all, just absolutely amazing. So that is it for the proper track list of the album. We've reviewed all the songs on Fallen Angel. Now we're going to get into the bonus tracks. We got a couple of those for you before we're done with this album and on to Conquest. So I want to thank you guys for joining me, for spending some time on your Thursday or whatever day you happen to be listening to this. Could be any day of the week, but it came out on Thursday. So I hope you guys have a wonderful afternoon. We'll be back tomorrow for the Friday show before you hit your weekend. Take care, guys. Cheers. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. If you have enjoyed this show, please consider going over to Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast outlet, leaving a rating or a review. Be sure to subscribe to make sure that you are notified when new episodes are available. Please be sure to share this podcast with your fellow Uriah Heep enthusiasts and anyone who you think would like Uriah Heep, which should be everyone. And if you are so inclined, please feel free to contribute to the Patreon account. And if you are not a Patreon subscriber, you can also pay through the PayPal link on the website listed in the show links below. I would also like to thank Uriah Heep for their very generous support of the show, and thank you guys for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Happy days!